Let me open up with a word of prayer and we'll get going, guys. God, thank you for the time together. Thank you for all those that were able to participate over the weekend as we just learn more about kind of just your big picture for the world and give us an opportunity to kind of go into Roanoke. God, thanks for just another reminder that there are needs all around us and you've equipped us and just challenged us to go and meet and fill those needs. And so help us to understand how we can do that more often and with greater enthusiasm. And God, challenge us now as we have an opportunity to open your word together. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so for the last few weeks, we've been talking about things being lost. Okay, finding kind of weird things in the lost and found. No one has claimed the camping chair yet for some reason. I don't know how someone leaves a camping chair here. But as we get started, here's what I want you to kind of consider and think about is, have you ever thrown away something that you regretted later on throwing away? Have you ever done that before? You threw something away, but like you regretted that you threw it away. Some of you guys may have heard about this guy. This guy is named James Howells, and have you ever heard of him before? Well, he about like 7-8 years ago, he was mining Bitcoin, and like he was just doing it for fun. Bitcoin wasn't really worth anything, and didn't really matter a whole lot, but he had it on this old hard drive, on this old computer, and he kind of got rid of the hard drive. He basically threw out the hard drive. He's like, I don't think anything's on it that's worthwhile, and so that hard drive, the Bitcoin that's on there is worth like $275 million now. And it's like in a landfill somewhere, and he's trying to get permission from the city officials to go in there and find it. Even if he miraculously finds the hard drive, he's probably going to have a lot of work to try and uncover some of the things that are actually on there that's worthwhile. And I don't think maybe we can compete with that level of regret and throwing something out that is maybe worth that much. But I'm sure that all of us have lost something that we've desperately tried to get back. I can remember a few years ago, we're talking about summer camp. A few years ago at summer camp, I lost one of my contact lenses. You remember that? You guys remember that? You guys were helping me look. I just kind of popped it out, and it was just gone. It just vanished. And the problem when you pop out your contacts is that you pop them out and you're blind. Like I can't see, and so it's hard to find it. So I'm like searching around and trying to find it. But I have different. Some of you wear contact lenses. Yeah, so mine are a little bit different. Mine are small. They're like that. They're like that big, and they're hard because of the shape of my eye. And so I don't have like the disposable ones that I can just go and buy a whole pack of them. I have two. I have one for my left eye and one for my right eye. That's it. They're pretty expensive because I have to go and get them shipped out. And so I was searching everywhere for these things. These guys come in and, what are you doing? I'm looking for my contact. I can't find it. And so we searched everywhere. It's like, well, maybe it went down the drain. So I opened up the cabinet on the bottom, and I was like, all right, let me give you guys a plumbing lesson. So I took the pipes all off underneath the sink, and it still wasn't there. But you know what? This was like a college campus, and the amount of disgusting buildup that was in the pipe of that drain, I probably would have had to boil my contact lens to ever wanted to go back in my eyeball again. It was so disgusting. Like even just thinking about it right now is just disgust. And so I never found it. I have no idea what happened to that contact lens. I had no possible idea how it could have gotten so lost. I've lost lots of things. I've lost my wedding ring a couple times, and lost it to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm going to get it back. 2 different times. And actually, the second time that I lost it, I actually bought another one because I was like, all right, well, it's gone. I'm just never going to be able to find it again. And someone called me up and said, hey, I think I found your ring. And so this is actually, despite losing it on two different occasions, this actually is the ring that I got on my wedding day. So this is actually I do have another one. I do have another one, for that time when I will lose this again. But it's been a long time, so I think I'm going to be good with it now. It's hard. It's hard for guys, Like I'm not used to wearing jewelry on my fingers. I've never worn a ring before, and it's hard. It was hard to get used to, and you guys will understand when you get married, I guess. We can laugh a lot about things like that. I mean, there's lots of stories that are funny looking back on them, but in the moment, there's not a lot of humor in it. I was not laughing, digging through junk out of the pipe at this random college. It probably had like 10 years of human hair stuck in the drain. But it's funny looking back on it now. But maybe the thing that you lost is not only valuable, but maybe it's sentimental, and there's almost like there's no replacing what you lost. It's there's a lot of things that can happen with the stuff that maybe. It's not even just something that you lost. Maybe you broke something or lost something, and that thing wasn't even yours. Has that happened before? Where you're borrowing something from someone and you just felt awful because the thing that you borrowed, you broke it or you lost it. And I think it's hard enough to do that and to kind of face some of those things. But when you know that you're the reason why those things were misplaced or lost, I mean, there's a lot more emotion that, this guy that lost this hard drive with Bitcoin, I mean, I'm kind of impressed that he's even, doing interviews and stuff, because I feel like it's a little bit embarrassing. Like, dude, you seriously just threw away almost $300 million, on this hard drive. That's ridiculous. And I think that's some of the things that we feel when we have lost something. We feel shame or anger or hurt. There's lots of different emotions that can kind of get jumbled up in our heart, in our mind, when we have something that we care for, that we either lost or broke, maybe something that belonged to someone else, whether that thing is valuable or sentimental, or there's lots of different reasons why we can kind of experience all the variety of emotions that comes. And so we've kind of been examining and looking at two stories so far in Luke chapter 15. And so we're going to look at the third story. So go ahead and open up to the Gospel of Luke chapter 15. And we're looking again at these specific things that were lost, but really the intention is, okay, what can we do, or what should we do when we ourselves feel lost? Guys, if you have not been at a place in life when you feel lost, you will at some point. You probably will at some point soon, because that's kind of one of the most common things that we experience just as people, especially people in our culture during the teen years. From 11, 12, 13 years old and until really a lot of times after you get out of college and get settled down, you kind of have that 10, 15-year period of life where you have these seasons where you're feeling lost. And then how can I handle myself, or how should I handle, what does God want me to do in those moments where I feel lost? The story that we're reading today is about a young guy who's actually a lot like us. He basically lost everything because of his mistakes. Let's read in verse 11. And he said, this is Jesus talking still, there was a man who had 2 sons, And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. It's always the younger one, right? Always the younger one causing problems. He divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his field to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. You know, this is kind of maybe it's difficult to grasp, I think, the full picture of this, because we're reading this story. Again, this is Jesus telling a parable, so this is not a real guy. It's like a fictitious story. And all we're hearing is detail. There's not really anything, and so maybe it's hard to put yourself in the position of this son. But I think there's a lot of things that align with how he handled his situation, his life, how he decided to do certain things, and then how we do some of those same things. You know, he was impulsive. You guys ever do things under just like an impulse, like you just do it right away, you just run in, and I don't know how much thought he put into this is a big life decision that he made. And when you make life decisions, big life decisions, it's not the best idea to be impulsive with your big life decisions. You should be investing in people that can kind of coach you and give you words of wisdom as you're handling and moving into this place. Hey, is this a good idea? Should I be pursuing this at all? And people in this guy's life have been like, that's probably not the best idea. Like, you probably shouldn't do that. But he wasn't seeking counsel. He was just wanting to do kind of what he wanted. And so in that impulsive behavior, he was hurtful. We don't know any of the details. I mean, but you can't imagine that he was trying to hurt his dad, right? You wouldn't think that he woke up and, hey, what can I do to hurt old Pop? What can I do to make him all mad at me? And yet, his words and his actions cut to a point that there's really nothing that could have resulted except for hurt. Because here's what he's saying, Dad, you're worth more to me dead than alive. That's essentially what he's saying to his dad. Like I don't really care about the relational connection with you at all. It doesn't matter. I just want the money so I can get out of here. I want to do my own thing. That's all that is matter. That is what's most significant to me. And you can imagine that. Imagine the hurt that he's putting out there in relation to his dad's just connection, the relationship that he has. Just all of the things that, guys, our words have this really deep power to bring about a lot of hurt if we're not careful. I think that's what this son was doing, but he was also selfish. Have you guys ever stopped to reflect on how your actions affect other people? Just even for a split second, even for just a moment. I'd like you to just try and think through what that looks like in your life. Let me think about just kind of I'm trying to think of like any kind of sin. Maybe something like okay, say you want something, and so you go take it. And you continue to take things. Okay, you would be called a thief, right? So you would just continue to steal things. Now, imagine, I mean, this is obviously a fake scenario. I'm assuming you're not going out and stealing things. If you are, you should not. Please stop doing that. But think about all the people who would be impacted by your behavior. The fact that you continue to take things that don't, but you're doing that because I want it. I think I deserve this. This is mine, so I'm going to keep doing it. Well, guess what? It impacts your probably family in the most immediate way, because then you'd be the one responsible. Hey, that person's their kid's a thief. They steal things. There'd be embarrassment there. There'd be shame there. There'd be frustration. And it would trickle down into your siblings. It would trickle down into your friendships. It would certainly affect the people that you'd be taking things from and their families. You know, if you are stealing something from a business, and that business, guess what? They had to pay for that item. And if you don't pay for that item, then they have less money for their family, and it's impacting them. Guys, there's not too many things like in your life that is more, I guess, more urgent that you understand the impact that your actions have on everyone else that's associated with you. Any sin that you can get caught up in, if anybody knows your name and knows who you are, your sin has the potential to be impacting their life for the negative. That's what sin does. Sin infects everyone and everything in its path. You have to understand that there is really no action that you can do that does not have a direct relation to somebody else. The more that you can understand that, the more you'll start seeing the big picture. See the son here, he was acting in his selfishness for what he wanted. That's why he was impulsive. Like if I don't act right now, then someone may talk me out of this. And this is what I want. This is what I want to do. This is what I want with my life. And I don't want anyone talking me out of it. I don't care who I hurt to get what I want. Selfishness doesn't take into account how anyone else feels. The son here, he didn't care about his dad. He didn't care about his brother. He didn't care about all of the people in the household, all the servants. Because have your brothers or sisters or anyone, maybe someone at work, done something to your mom and dad or hurt them in such a way that it's obvious. Like it's obvious that you've been hurt. Like have you seen your parents at a point like that in life where someone has had an impact? And guess what? That affects you. You know? Oh, dad's coming in and he's angry because of something at work. Or dad's coming in because mom's coming in and they're mad because my brother messed up again. Or my sister did something that she shouldn't have done. And guess what? That affects then your relationship with your parents. Guys, all these things are interconnected. I can imagine that the hurt that this dad experienced from his son, how could that not trickle down to everyone else in the household? It affected his relationship with the other brother. It affected how he related to all the people that were in his household. It affects everything. You know, and I think when we look at it's really easy for us to pick out, well, here's all the things that the son did wrong. Here's what we shouldn't do. And all of those things are valid and true. But kind of think about Think about what the Son was really after, because then we can connect it to us really quickly. Here's what the Son was searching for. I just want to get out of here. I just want my independence. I just want to do my own thing. Guys, I can't tell you how many times that I had good parents. I had a good home. I can't tell you how many times I had a thought that said, I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to start doing things on my own. I can't wait to make my own decisions. I can't wait to not have any rules. And I was a good kid. My parents didn't give me a whole lot of rules. They were very lenient with me because I behaved, because I listened, all right? But I still wanted to get out. I still didn't want to be, and so I can sympathize with the younger son here and understand, okay, I get that. Guys, we're all in that, we all get into that place where I want what I want. And these other people, they're kind of just, they're holding me back. He thought he was just missing out on life. He was restricted from doing what he really wanted in life. And we get caught in that, right? We get caught in that same pattern of thinking. And so what did he do? He lived it up. He lived it up until he couldn't do it anymore because a famine came. People weren't hiring anyone. He wasn't able to make any money. He was starving. He didn't have anything. He had already left his family. He didn't have a family because he walked out and left them. And he's working with the pigs here, desiring to eat the same food as the pigs. Now, let me. So I've been the past couple of weeks. I've been reminding you who Jesus is talking to in Luke chapter 15. Who's Jesus talking to in Luke 15? Do you guys remember? Who? Disciples, yeah, kind of, but he's directly. He's eating with them. He's eating with, yeah, but he's talking to. He's trying to make a point with these stories to the Pharisees. Here's the thing about the Pharisees. Okay, they would have picked out very different details in this story than any of us picked out. You know, we would maybe come to this point of either, well, the son's just getting what he wants there. You know, he's sticking his face in the feeding trough with the pigs, serves him right. Or maybe we're compassionate. I guess there's two sides there where you kind of feel sorry for him. You know, you get to the point where like, oh, he's at the lowest of the low of his life, and you kind of feel bad for him in a way. See, the Pharisees wouldn't have thought either of those things. The Pharisees' first thought would have been like, oh, pigs, they're unclean. Their disgust would have been based on the fact that Jesus, he could have introduced any animal that he wanted. I mean, Jesus is making this story up. He specifically chose pigs to try and attack their thinking. Remember, he's trying to shift how they think about certain things. And this is a thinking thing that they needed to shift in trying to picture that this is the detail that you most care about, but this is not what's most important. Let's keep reading. Verse 20. He arose and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate, for this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. So this guy was, okay, this is a make-believe story, but try and imagine that he's real, okay? So this is the point where you talk about being at the bottom of the barrel. He was at the end, basically. I mean, he had just had no hope left. There was nothing else there. He had a good life, and he threw it away because he wanted to do what he wanted. And so I'm imagining there's lots of shame that's going into this and regret. but also maybe a little bit of fear. Guys, we get that. We get fear when we know what we're supposed to do. But that thing that we have to do is super hard. You think it was easy for the son to march on back to his house, to face the dad that he hurt, to face his brother that he kind of stole from? He decided that he's like, I'm not even going to go back as a son. I kind of walked out of my family. I'm going back as a servant, as someone they're going to pay, as just like the rest of the other guys. That's how I'm going back. And so what I'm picturing, because we don't get what I'm picturing is the same thing that we do when we have to humble ourselves in this way. And we're walking up, and I'm imagining the son walking back and rehearsing over and over. Here's the speech. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to tell Dad I'm sorry. I'm going to tell Dad that I'm not his son. I'm not expecting him to welcome me back. I'm not expecting any of those things. I just want to eat. I'm starving. Would you just hire me as I'm imagining all these things playing out, and then we see this response. I mean, it's human. How can the dad not still be hurting and in pain because of what his son did to him? How could he not be mad at him? I mean, maybe he is those things, but the compassion and love that he had was just far greater. It completely outweighed all of those things, and he hugged him, and he welcomed him back, and he gave him some gifts. Do you see what he gave him? What did he give him? What were the 3 gifts? He killed the calf. You're right. Shoes and robe. What was the third thing? A ring. Ring. No, they had a feast. You're right. Yeah, he killed the calf. Yeah, we read that. The three kind of like material things, I guess you could say. So the material was the ring and the robe and the sandals, and it's hard because like all of these things actually have a specific and intended purpose that we can kind of miss because we're not in the culture. Like if someone gave you a robe, you'd be like, well, it's kind of weird. Like, why are you giving me a robe or, shoes? Ever give some random person a pair of shoes? That'd be kind of weird. All of these things actually signified something, though. He gave him the robe, which was given to people that you wanted to honor. If you wanted to honor someone, you go, hey, bring the robe in. Let's drape this over him. The ring represented authority, basically saying that like I'm gonna put people like underneath you now, like you're coming back with this level of you have a voice. And then he gave him the sandals. Sandals were mostly worn by people who were free, so people who were servants or slaves. They didn't really have sandals. People who were free had sandals. And so it was like, okay, I'm welcoming you back, not just to my home, I'm welcoming you back to our family. I'm inviting you in. He did more than simply say, yeah, here's a roof, here's your room. He welcomed him back, and he forgave him. Jesus is telling all 3 of these stories here in this chapter so that we can learn about who God is. That's why Jesus tells parables. And parables are stories that help us understand who is God. And we look at this particular story, okay, so who is God, and what can we learn about God based on this story of the son leaving and coming? Well, God would be in unison or equated with the Father. So the Father in the story would be God, the Heavenly Father, welcoming people back who are wandering away. He's kind and loving. You know, he's patient. I'm so thankful that God is patient with me. You guys maybe you think that, like, you know, pastors don't have struggles or don't have. Please don't think that, because you know, we're all people. We all have the same struggles and the same things that can really easily trip us up. And so for me, I was encouraged reading these verses and being reminded this week of who God is. Because when we're far from God, no matter how far we feel like we're from God, He's going to be like the Father in this story. He's going to welcome us back. And I think this is one of God's qualities that's really hard for us to remember. And I think the reason why is because we as Christians, we don't do a very good job of demonstrating this. Because we treat people that make mistakes or wander far away from God, we kind of have like a hand up to them a little bit. And we're like, no, you can come back, just clean yourself up first. Get yourself right with God, and then you can come back here. We're not really quick at welcoming people, and so it causes us to maybe miss out on the fact that this is a quality that God has, that He's willing to accept anyone who's willing to just humble themselves and come back. Like, I want to come back. Like, I admit my mistakes, and I want to be back in fellowship. You know, and so I wonder, because we see this scene, and so I would imagine as the son comes back, here's how we would be able to describe that picture. This is a welcoming back party, a welcoming environment. And so what I would love to brainstorm here as we get ready to close is, what are some things that make a welcoming environment? Like, what are some of the characteristics that you think are important, like words or phrases or things that, like, would have been evident in this scene, in this place with the son coming back, that would give us reason to say, wow, that's welcoming? What are some of the things that you've experienced in places that you've gone that you've been able to say, well, that place is welcoming. Like, I feel welcome in that place. What do you think? What are words or phrases or characteristics? Is that your hand up, Lacey? Okay. What are some things that make up a welcoming environment? Okay. Okay, food's good. Gifts? What else? People? Well, I mean, people, that is a right answer, but people are everywhere, and every place is not welcoming, so. People you know, okay, that's better. People you know. Talkative, willing to share, I guess. How do you spell that? It doesn't look right. Close. You know what it is. What else? Well, that's food. Kids. Okay, so let's call that being genuine. All right, people being genuine. Caring, concern. All right, you get the idea, right? You kind of know what makes up a welcoming environment. So here's what I want to challenge you with this morning, okay? Because I think this parable can do two things. It can introduce us to an aspect of who God is, but then challenges us to go and do likewise. And so we think about, us in a collective way, there's plenty of environments that you all are part of. Now, this one right here is the only one that we're all part of collectively. And so we have an opportunity to make sure that this environment, this place is welcoming. Like I wonder how often, and even just think about how long that you've been up here. Some of you guys have been up here for, 5, 6, 7 years. Some of you guys have been up here for 20 days. So it depends, right, how long you've been up here. But I wonder in that time, has there been anyone that has wandered in and not felt welcomed by Jesus because they didn't feel welcomed by anybody else? Guys, we have the chance to kind of change that perspective. We all have a part to play in introducing that same mentality that God is demonstrating. God is perfect at this. He's constantly welcoming people back. And I think that's the scene. Some of you guys have probably been in church so long that it's just normal. It's just what I do. I come to church on Sunday. It's just not a big deal. But for a lot of people who come to church for the first time, it's a very big deal. It's a big deal to come to church just one time. And that one time can make a big difference in whether or not they're going to see a clear picture of who Jesus is. And we have a chance to drive that. We have a chance to shape that. And so thinking about these two, here's how I want you to think about this parable. I want you to think about these two elements of this is what God does. God welcomes people. If you're feeling like you're far from God, if you feel like you're lost, if you feel like God is going to welcome you back. But then we also have that responsibility to model the same behavior despite what someone's done to us, despite how much they've hurt us, despite how much that person was selfish. They didn't think about anyone else but themselves. Okay, yeah, that may be true. Welcome them back. Welcome them back. Invite them into the fellowship. Help them to understand that this is what God does. This is who God is. Let me pray. God, thank you for always welcoming us back. God, there's so many times in our life, I don't know, that I've wandered from you. God, and I thank you for being patient and loving and so compassionate and kind that you were willing to just welcome me back into your presence in those moments that I've just simply walked away from you. And God, I'm praying that if anyone is here in that moment where they've kind of been wandering away, God, help them to remember that you are loving and patient and gracious if they're willing to humble themselves in your presence. God, help us to make that step because it's hard, God, it's difficult. And then help us to be the transforming people that you design us to be as we have opportunity to demonstrate your characteristics to people that we come in contact with. God, help us to do that consistently and faithfully each and every day. Be with us as we leave. In Jesus' name, amen.